Leaders just don't know how to take the time to realize their job actually really needs to be all about helping others be successful. And how do they help get themselves out of the way, their own mindset? And quite frankly, most leaders are so in their own heads about their own stuff. And that's one of the biggest problems. And they don't come back to realizing the bottom line is, how are you enabling your people to be super successful so that they can help the people who are buying the product, the service, whatever it is, get what they want and need?
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to A Matter of Speaking, a podcast for leading voices in the industries of health, wealth, and relationships. I'm Dylan. We're on episode 39 now, and if you're new to this, let me tell you that the point of this podcast is reaching out and talking to thought leaders and leading voices that have a message in their heart or a mastery in their mind that they're looking to get out to the world. And we want to learn from them what the journey has been like, what their message is, and why they decided to get uncomfortable to get it out there, in hopes of, one, teaching our viewers something new, and two, potentially helping a few people out there take that next step in their own uncomfort journey to get their own message or mastery out there. That's what we hope to do. And hopefully we did that today, speaking with Laura Stone. She is a client of leaders in our Inner Circle program, building her business, and she already has a huge background in business building. She works with executives, teams, and emerging leaders to increase their strategic impact and well-being to achieve results and make them proud. Very important. We talk about that today. Her biggest piece of work was the CVS catalyst to remove tobacco from their shelves, a $1.5 billion industry for them, or sale for them. A partial list of her clients includes Danone, TJX, Bacardi, Unilever, Iron Mountain, IBM, Pfizer, Fidelity Investments, and Toyota. She is also the author of the Pocket Guide to Purpose series, former U.S. Coast Guard captain, HBS faculty member, and huge Rhodi fan. I don't know what that last part meant, but it is an awesome interview that we had today. We talk about the beauty of simplicity and selflessness as a leader, like being able to come back and lie on the foundations that we know change people, and then leave it up to the people we're trying to help to put icing on that cake. We talk about her journey and how she started off in leadership, buying cups of coffee to some of the best leaders she could find and learning from them, and then getting her foot in the door through her curiosity. You're going to learn a bunch from her. She's incredible. We're going to dive into it. But before we do, this podcast is brought to you by LEADR, our company. Over the last 8 years, this company has made it a mission to help its coaching and consulting clients get their authentic message out to the world in hopes of reaching their own desired audience through the power of speaking and business building. Over 700 clients at least now landing TEDx talks, hundreds more speaking on virtual and physical stages around the world. LEADR just has perfected the art of delivering a top-tier message. They also offer programs to build and scale your own high-ticket program and authentically market and sell yourself to your target audience in order to build a sustainably scaled business. That is what Laura has been going through with myself and our team. We're going to talk business today. We're going to learn about leadership and tips to building your own business and why coaches need coaches. So if you're interested in any of this stuff, you want some free resources, click the links in the description. You can watch free webinars from Taylor Conroy, the president of our company, and learn. Just dip your toe in one step at a time. We also talk about that today. And speaking of which, I'm going to pass it on over. While you're down there, like, subscribe, let's share this message. And now let's listen to Laura talk to me. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to It's a Matter of Speaking, a podcast for leading voices, episode 39, Coffee Sessions. So our guest today is Laura Stone. We're going to be talking in the realm of wealth, and she, very direct, reached out to me and said, Dylan, I can't do your typical times. Can you do earlier? So this is the first podcast that I'm filming in the morning, and we're having a little coffee date with it. Laura Stone, thank you for coming on the podcast.
So excited to be here. Thank you so much for waking up early and having some coffee together. It's always good.
I told my kid, don't cry. I told my wife we can't vacuum. This is all about Laura this morning. No, I'm excited because it's kind of meta. We're talking about leadership, right? I want to understand your career and how you got to the point working with people like Danone and TJX and Harvard and Unilever. But I always ask the first question, which is, what does it mean for you to be a leading voice? And you're a leading voice on leadership. You're getting your voice out there. You're telling people that leadership is important, and you're not just going to work every day and living it. You want to live it and teach it. Why? Like, what does it mean to be a leading voice to you?
Well, it's so funny you say this because I'm not sure I think of myself as a leading voice on one hand. I think of myself as someone who is a conduit of really important information that I think every leader needs to have, know, and do. And it's got everything to do with mindset. And I think the reason this has become so important to me is I look at leadership today, and no matter which level you look at, from a global level, political level, corporate level, it's really what runs everything, and all the way down to churches and synagogues and people who are running committees.
Yeah.
Everything has got to do with leadership. And when it's done well, you know it. When it's not done well, you so feel it and want it to be better. So it's a common piece in my heart that's so important right now.
It's like that adage. Go ahead.
No, that's it. Good.
It's like that adage, shit trickles down. You can almost tell when you step in this area of like, oh, something feels off. You're saying it starts from the top. And then when you say, hey, I'm a conduit of this message, does that take some of the pressure off for you?
Well, here's the thing. I think the people I work with, and what I find is people are really smart. Mm-hmm. It's not that they don't know like so much. It's just there's times where it just needs to be surgically focused to align on what they absolutely need to get through. So what I find is with the really smart clients I have, it's less about how much time you're taking with them and more about deeply listening on multiple levels to help them get through something so they can feel it and own it, to take it out to their world. Because in essence, I shadow them. I'm in the backgrounds to them. And sometimes I'm in the front with teams with them. But I'm always there as a way to help their best selves rise and help others.
There's a really good quote from Lao Tzu, and I'm going to butcher it, but it goes something along the lines of a very good leader, when it's all said and done, when he looks back on his work, his people will say, we did it ourselves. So what I'm hearing is like really being in that background for people. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this podcast or watch this podcast on YouTube, like and subscribe if you're doing that, that are like, yeah, I want to be a really good leader. Like, of course, I have that. I have the brilliance for it, but it's a journey to get there, right? You have worked with some of the top names. I already said a few. I can Danone, Iron Mountain, IBM, Pfizer, Fidelity, CVS, right? Like you've worked with some of the top names. But for anyone listening, where did it all start? Like, where did you get your start in business?
In business. So here's where it actually started. And it was the first bridge to helping me understand what is this whole thing about leadership. I was tapped on the shoulder at age 16. And you're going to go, wait a second, how has this got to do with business? But just bear with me. Mm-hmm. I was asked by my principal to go apply for this program called HBS, the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Foundation. A little plug for them because they're amazing. And through the process, what I realized was that there was a whole bunch of other young people like me coming together. And what they were driving to is not about teaching us what to think, but how to think. And notice, and they had these panels set up, and they had people who had very different points of view on one panel on the same topic. And then later on in life, I became one of those panelists talking about entrepreneurship, for example. And when push came to shove, what really got me going, and it's still the same question today that got me interested when I was 16, is what makes a great leader great? And because of that organization, it kept me thinking and reading and exploring and talking to business leaders. And little by little, I started sussing out what individual great consultants did, other leaders, and looking at what are the common themes. And that's been a question that I find is paramount, is helping leaders think for themselves. what's going on in their own mind about how they see the world, because that creates their reality and it creates the reality for their teams and companies. And the more clear and better they are and grounded, the better the whole organization will be, the culture and the results.
So I want to get into the common themes in a bit here of what
Yeah.
you saw, but you joined this organization, right? They teach you how to think, not what to think. You're starting to get these systems in place. And then when you go into the real world, right, with a capital W on it, when you go into the real world, do you go right into a consultative role or a leadership role, or did you start more at the bottom of the totem pole?
Oh, I was at the bottom.
What
Absolutely.
were you
And I
doing?
ended So my first role in business, I was like a everything person to a small startup that was an MIT spinoff.
Hmm.
And the guy wanted to do all the programming, and I ended up working, and this was completely out of my comfort zone. I was an English major in college, minored in international relations and French. And then I found myself with scientists and engineers doing statistical analysis package sales. And I had no clue, but I learned, and I loved working and talking with these people. And I learned what their challenges were with why they were using this data. What were they trying to get done with it? And I realized everything came down to someone being curious, someone trying to make the world a little better in whatever realm.
Hmm.
And then I got to learn the whole expansive part about how you run a business. And that was the beginning for me to
Hmm.
start looking into, I think I can do this better, which is what every entrepreneur thinks they can
Yeah.
do. And some of us can do it and some of us can't. And it's not for the faint of heart because the stats are really against us. But this is what you have to have, the conviction behind it and the passion and the excitement of, gosh, this is just continually making me curious.
Yeah, like you go in, like you said, you get in outside your comfort zone, which we're going to talk also about today, and you
Yeah.
get in and you start asking these questions, right? And
Yeah.
then you start seeing the whole picture and what you get excited about. Let me go one step before that. English major, bunch of science nerds. You're coming into sales. What made you say yes to that? But like obviously everything you learned once you're in it, but it's like that first decision, what made you say yes to get into it?
I was intrigued by what this guy was up to, and I needed a job. I mean, here's the honest truth, like money, like young in my career, not knowing really what I wanted to do, never thought I would be doing that job. But what I loved about it was how small it was and how I got my hands on all different aspects of the business. And so if you had told me today that that would have been a pivotal moment in my career, I would have said, "Are you kidding me?"
Right.
But it's one of these things where doors open and we got to walk through it.
Yeah.
And we may not understand it, but we need enough courage to take that step forward to explore and see what's possible. And if I didn't like it, I was going to leave. But I
Mhm.
was there for 3 years and we helped triple the business. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, that
So
was it. It's funny because it's like you go in from curiosity. It opens up all these doors. You continue your curiosity. You're like, man, this is how business operates with everything you learned in your past, right?
yeah,
In that
yeah,
organization. I was going to ask how long until you kind of stepped up into that leadership role. I know you just said you were at that company for 3 years,
yeah.
but did you then do like a side move? Did you go up? Like how long until you started getting into leadership yourself?
So I had always, here's a very important part I tell a lot of clients when they're trying to figure out if they're going to make a transition to something different.
Hmm.
What I ended up doing was I was tapped after I had gone through that youth leadership program. I was asked to come back as an alumni, and I started the alumni program. I then started doing seminars with this organization and helping from the back end as well as being panelists. And all that time, I was gaining by my volunteer work leadership development skills from expert consultants who were also coming in and volunteering their time.
Mm.
And because of that, I would then take them out for a cup of coffee because that's all I could afford,
Yeah.
and said to them, "Hey, what's the one book that if you were saying was so instrumental and pivotal in your career to what you're doing today, what would you recommend?" And I would go around and I would have that one book conversation,
Mm.
and then I would go back and read it. And mind you, I'm dyslexic, so it took me a long time to get through these books, or for what most people could do. And we didn't
It's
have
actually
ChatGPT,
It's actually pronounced Lisdexic. I don't know if I'm kidding. Can keep going.
something like that. And I would go back to that person, that consultant, and have a conversation with them. And that was the building of how I got to learn about this industry. And then here's the crazy part. I had someone tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, can you help me with my team from the work you were doing over here? Because I know you do this." And I'm thinking to myself, you're going to pay me to do what I was doing for free? Okay. And that was the beginning. And I loved it. I loved working with teams. I loved just getting super curious with them about asking 3 questions. What are you most happy and proud about this work you're up to? What are the biggest challenges that if you were CEO or the head of the team or whatever it was, what would you want to make sure, like, where do you want to go and the opportunities? And then what are the biggest things that get in the way of you and what you see we could be doing to get to that outcome that you would want to get to? And usually I would always throw in one other question, which is, what have I not asked you that I should be? And those still are some of my primary questions that gets to the root of what people want to change.
So really what I'm hearing is it's been a passion for leadership from the beginning. And even though you're working at this company for 3 years, you're still learning as much as you can from these other leaders and consultants. And in this process, you're still putting in the grind over here 3 years. You have other people reaching out to you, say, "Hey, can you work with my team?" So you're starting to do side work here.
Side hustles, absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that was the beginning of making me realize, wait a second, there's something here. Like I didn't, as an English major, I didn't know there was a conversation you could have about being a management consultant. Like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And I didn't go to business school at that point, and I tried later on. That's a whole nother story. But I didn't have any clue. And so I just followed what I loved in my heart and where I felt I could make the biggest difference. And that was the beginning of it.
And how long did that take, right? It's like you're in this board, you're working as well on the side while you're still going through this. How long did it take for you to start to get these little side projects?
So it was little by little that at that time, my husband said to me, "Hey, why don't you start calling some of my best clients and just have some exploratory conversations?" And what I got very clear on is if when I stayed humble and curious and not knowing, like walking in and saying, "Listen, I just am grateful to have a half hour with you. I don't know if I can help you or not, but I'd love to learn and see what's possible." And it was one contract at a time that started happening. And then I landed a position at Fidelity Investments. And that was really a groundbreaking opportunity. And that was actually because of the work I was doing with that nonprofit. Someone on our board, when I was the chairman of the board for that nonprofit, was also working at Fidelity, and he made the introduction for me. So I say kudos, John Murphy. Thank you so much, because that was a huge leap into then going, okay, oh my God, I'm at Fidelity. And they sent me around the country to go learn their content to then be able to teach leaders. And that's where I got my 10,000 hours of training and development. And that was the beginning of it.
And from there, it's almost like we go from curious about leadership, working on at the the grunt level position, let's say, working yourself up on the side. So you're gaining the skills you need to land a job at Fidelity. And when you were there, you were doing what, real quick?
I was doing leadership development and consulting within the business. So I was training and development on all leadership aspects and applying that into the businesses.
So really, you go right from, because of your curiosity and sharpening your skill outside of your day job, you go right into coaching leaders with Fidelity.
It was coaching. And at that point, quite frankly, it was more teaching and consulting. And I would say the coaching evolved from that because when I was at Fidelity, I got recruited into one of the companies that was our vendor.
Yeah.
And because of that opportunity, I was flown into crazy situations, like the president of a company that's no longer open. It was a women's clothing company, and they wanted me to work with the CEO, who is this woman who had she owned 3 pigs that were in her house, and she talked about this, but she was this amazing woman who, I ended up doing consulting, and what I realized was executive coaching to her around her team as we were walking through how were we going to work with her team. And that was the beginning of it.
Because for anyone listening, I'm curious your thoughts here. You said, well, I started off teaching and then I got into coaching. How would you separate the two?
teaching to me and being on faculty is a one to many.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching typically was a one-to-one, although now I'm going back to one to many with just coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I say this because there's usually in teaching, there's a curriculum of material, a workbook, you are driving to a certain end result. And as I'm speaking this, I'm going, wait a second, then what's the difference between one to many with coaching? And it's the same, but how it was structured, for example, at Fidelity
Mm-hmm.
was more course content, 2 days, for example.
Yeah. Well, I almost see it as when I was in consulting, they said there's like 5 stages to really letting something sink in. First, you need to learn it, right? First thing you need to do is be able to learn the concept. Then you need to live it. Most people completely skip that step.
Yeah.
And they go right to the third step, which is teach it. Like you're saying, one to many, but very much like lecture style. Here you go. Here's some ideas. Take it if you want.
Yes.
Then from teach it, you go to coach it, which is more of that one-to-one. So it's embedded. And then the last one, which could be what we're talking about here, is then being able to train it, right? Being able to go from coaching to training. It's like it's teaching people a concept that they embed and then teach others, like teach a man to fish. So
yeah,
this has been a wild journey for you.
I think the fun part, that last part, I loved so much, and I had no idea that I was going to love it so much, which was, we used to call them train the trainers. Yeah. And we would have people come in, and I remember having a group of really smart, like, consultants come in, and I'm thinking to myself, who am I to be teaching them? Mm-hmm. And then I got it that I have a body of knowledge and experience teaching this course that they don't. So I've got something that I want to be able to give them, but I needed to do it in a way that was going to serve them best. And Nancy Brodsky, who was this fabulous woman at a company called Interaction Associates, said to me one time, and I watched her do it. She goes, just start with getting their questions out. Like, what do they want out of this time together with this train the trainer? Mm-hmm. And that would be the way I would begin every other event that was something like that, so that people would get exactly what they want versus what I think they want. Because it doesn't really matter what I think they want. What really matters is what they want.
If we could nerd out a little bit as consultants right now, if you come in to do a training and you know what you want to teach, right?
Yes.
We do the same way. It's like, what is it that you're looking to get out of it? There's a chance that what they say is a little bit different. How do you deal with the nerves of like, holy shit, I got to change everything up? Is there something you lean back to, or does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I'll give a quick story. I had this situation last year where it was last January. I was in the room and I sat through this group. It happened to have been a nonprofit, because I do nonprofit work now in the state of Rhode Island, because I feel like I have to give back, and I'm finally able to give back in my community. And I'm in this room and I watched this other professor do a piece of training with this group. And by the time he was done and I was up and I was supposed to do something for an afternoon the next day, I was like, I can't go into this the way I thought. And I got really nervous. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to ask the question what I did, which was, what do you want out of this? Mm-hmm. And at first I'm thinking, okay, they want this, they want that. Okay, we got that. And in the back of my head, I'm going, check, check, check. I'm just going to rearrange it. And what I quickly realized, and this whole program was actually about a leader's purpose. And the people in the room were already full of purpose. I mean, they were doing work in the community that was amazing. And what became very clear was they wanted something to be able to help them help others. So I didn't have to do a complete 180 on it. Mm-hmm. I just had to tweak it. And I found that if we just stay grounded, take a couple of deep breaths, and just have that knowingness that we have a gift, and the question is, how is it best shared? And just get to a place of doing our best, because that's all we can do.
Yeah.
And once I got to that, and the fun part with that particular group, I brought books for everybody, my first 2 books, and I was going to give it at the end. And I looked over to the director. I said, I think we need to give it out now. And everyone else in the audience, it was like 40 leaders, and they're kind of looking, what is it? So it gave everybody the book. And I got to tell you, it was, I still get goosebumps about the story I'm about to tell you. Very quick. One of the gentlemen, because my books are very strange for a business book. They're picture.
And we're going to talk about them in a minute. Trust me.
Yeah. And most people, when they look at them, there's a lot of white space, a lot of color. It's highly visual. And there was a gentleman in the group who said, he raised his hand. He goes, "You have no idea the impact that your book is having on me right now." And I'm kind of like, okay, share some more. And he said, "I had been diagnosed with something where I can't see pictures in my mind. So if you say a white mountaintop with birds flying over, my screen in my brain is blank." And I'm like, he goes, "What you have here is you've given me the ability to have the image and the content together that now brings a very different meaning, deeper meaning to me. And I can't tell you how happy I am to have this." And I'm like, oh my God. And
Yeah.
that's all to being staying present when going in this room and not feeling like we have to have all the answers right, because I'm never going to have all the right answers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. And I think like part of it is like knowing the things that you can say, kind of knowing those foundational pieces, and then trusting the knowledge that you've accumulated over the years to ask others, "Hey, what do you need? Because I can add on to this foundation." And then to go a step further, grounding yourself so we
Yes.
can think on our toes of, okay, I'm going to shift this, this, and this. And you know what? Right now, I think you need the book in this example. Okay, so tell us about the new book, right? I want to make sure, team purpose to performance. Show it off. I know it's a
Okay.
hard
Okay.
copy.
Okay. So here's a copy. This is the version before they release it.
Yeah.
And
You said this is version 39.
version 39. Oh my God.
Wild to me.
Like session. Yeah. So here's a couple of pictures in it. So you'll see that this has a lot of white space, color, some really fun drawings. And the reason being is the whole book is geared towards, you're going to see an image like this, which is all about a game plan.
Hmm.
And the whole idea of this book is to help a team come together and think about what's going to make them proud. What are the core challenges, tensions, paradoxes they have to address to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that are the results we want from it? And those are like the three primary questions this book answers. And oh, by the way, this is the work that I did with CVS that helped them eliminate tobacco. And it was the catalyst for a 5-year project for them that was, I didn't know what was going to come from it, but I got a phone call in October of 2013 by a colleague of mine who knew my story.
Hmm.
And I had been at Unilever telling it without saying the names of the clients. And we didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And the quote that came back from the newspapers was that President Obama said, "This is a historic move that will change the course of history in the US for their health and well-being." And I had said almost something similar to the president then, a week after we had had this session. And I said, if you come first to market, you're going to have everything. It's going to be it's going to be historic. If you come second to market, you will have nothing.
And the big reason for this, for anyone listening, is like CVS was one of their main sellers was tobacco. And they're like, you know what? We're going to be the first people that takes it off our shelves. And by the way, we have other stuff you can buy at our stores. Is that the reason?
It was a conflict of interest for them. They had a $1.5 billion earning from this one product line. Significant.
A $1.5 billion earning off their shelves.
Just from tobacco products.
Damn.
And they realized that they started losing very big deals because they had just acquired Caremark, which is basically a pharmacy benefit company that large companies use to help their employees go get the meds they need. And so here they were going through CVS where they're selling products that are going against what the companies are trying to do with the health of their employees. It was huge.
Do you feel the owners and the people you work with at CVS could easily have also, as they worked with you, read this picture book that you just put out?
I really wish I had this, but apparently it wasn't supposed to come out yet. It would have made it easier for people to get and understand, and more importantly, have the conversations with their teams. Yeah. And that's, to me, the beauty of this book. It's no longer in just for me or a consulting company to have. It's for you as a leader to take this, use it, and integrate it. Every time you start a new project, you have a new team member come on board, you are in a conflict situation, you need to evolve and see what could be possible. That's when people can use this.
Yeah. And I'm saying like a leader, myself, could read this book. The leaders of CVS could read this book. A picture book.
I know,
And
right?
I know you told me the story of the guy. I think that the term is something like autophantasia or Europhantasia. The one of
Yes.
the yeah, they can't see the other than that small segment of people out there.
Yeah.
Why a picture book to teach all this stuff? Like big concepts, right? That can be taken at a high level of an organization. Why a picture book?
I think one is that it's fast for people to get the concepts.
Mm.
So it's something that's easy digestible. It can be absorbed, integrated, and made for their own way of doing things. So I just bring it out in a way that's fun. And the second thing is it's fun, which makes it less threatening and more of an opportunity. And the third part is it gets great results. And so I was like, how do you bring this together in a way that tells a story, creates opportunity, has people thinking? And here's the beauty. If people only get through like the first 3 chapters, it's not long, and they don't do anything else, they're still going to have a very different kind of conversation with their teams than they would have otherwise, because teams don't talk about what's the work that only we can and should be doing.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier of like the questions team leaders don't ask. I'd imagine it's covered in this book.
Yes.
Did you already tell me those questions? I was writing them down. What are you most happy about? What's getting in the way? And there was one other. What's the main questions that leaders don't ask their team? Like if
Yeah.
you could simplify it.
So those questions I had said earlier were questions that I would ask a team before they come in to this process, because it starts aligning them on all the different issues of their current state,
Mm-hmm.
issues and opportunities, quite frankly. The question that never rarely gets asked in teams are these 3 questions. What's the work that only we can and should be doing? What are the core tensions or paradoxes that we must address in order to advance our purpose? And what are the key results and or outcomes that will help us know when we are making progress towards that purpose that will make us proud? And why I go to the key results and outcomes and not actions is that when people are very clear about the outcome and the result they're going to, there can be multitudes of ways to get to that result.
Hmm.
The intention is allow leaders to do their job, be clear about the outcomes, and then let them figure out the way there and coach them and help them to it, but let them do the work because they're closest to it.
I really give me the 3 questions again because I want to make sure I'm hearing them, and 2, anyone listening is.
What's the work that only we can do as a
Mm-hmm.
team that will make us proud? What are the core tensions or paradoxes that we must address in order to achieve our purpose? What are the key results or outcomes that will guide us to our purpose?
Hmm. I also like that first question. It's like, what is the work that only we can do that we're proud of? It's like, it gets people to buy in. It's like, this is like, I talk about it often. This is my mastery and or my passion, right? You can have both, but even to come, it's like, this is the mastery of our team.
Yes.
Then it's like, if we know our mastery, it's then what's getting in the way, the tension or the paradoxes. And then once we can work through that, what's the results that we're going to see? And then we can think creatively how to get there. Man, this could be the boring part of the podcast for anyone listening, but we talk pictures of just it's fun and fast. We talk 3 simple questions that people can ask. Why do you think people you talk about the foundations that you have when you speak to these organizations or you speak to these, big auditoriums of people? Why do you think people tend to forget about the simple stuff or the foundations as they grow in their leadership journey?
We're inundated with so much data, and think about it this way. We all know what the right foods are we should be eating. So why don't we eat them all the time?
Mm,
Because we get all these other things in front of us and we just keep going until we kind of have that reset moment. And I think what ends up happening is really good leaders are not being trained today well, because a lot of budgets are being slashed. The whole hybrid COVID work environment, people are not getting the mentorship in person, or leaders just don't know how to take the time to realize their job actually really needs to be all about helping others be successful. And how do they help get themselves out of the way, their own mindset? And quite frankly, most leaders are so in their own heads about their own stuff. And that's one of the biggest problems. And they don't come back to realizing the bottom line is, how are you enabling your people to be super successful so that they can help the people who are buying the product, the service, whatever it is, get what they want and need?
Mm.
It's not complicated, but I think we have so many bells and whistles around us that the foundations have been lost.
Yeah. And I was writing down as you said it, it's simple and it's selfless, because it's not about you. It's about getting what you can from the team. And you've done this at a very, now from where we're at now, putting out these 3 books, working with these with CVS, Unilever, Harvard, all these names. You have now come in to the leader sphere to then go a step further. So what for you is the next step
Yeah.
in your getting your mastery out there?
I will say, and this is, by the way, I've not been paid to say what I'm about to say. LEADR has helped me figure out and realize how to take and synthesize my career of all my content and bring it in and package it in a way that enables leaders to take and integrate this over a period of time that will best serve them. Because there's no one else doing it. I have not heard anyone else doing the work of how I'm doing it, but LEADR helped me see the path forward of how I could do this. And I'll give a quick example if that would help.
Yeah, sure.
I remember talking to some of your colleagues, and I would say, well, what about this digital program I have? How do I need a landing page and this? And they would say, it was Taylor who said, why? No. You just need to put it into this program. And I'm like, and I'd come back 15 minutes later, I'm like, well, wait, I have these 3 books. And then he's like, put it in the program.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked to another one, he goes, put it into the program. I'm like, well, what about my quick and dirty? Put it into, I'm like, all right, already, I get it. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until I could see it and how the brilliance of the simplicity that you all helped me put together, was it that I finally feel like I really have something here, and now I'm seeing it. And I'm in a little bit of a different business, but I'm doing a both and. Yeah. I am doing business to business and business to consumer. Yeah. And I would never have thought I would have a TikTok following more than I have on LinkedIn in such a short time. And it's happening.
Yeah, that's all. I didn't know that. I want to make sure I tell our team that's incredible for you. And it's funny, I just circled the word simpler again. It's like, because what you do is teach people, like, keep it simple, have fun. And then coming into this, needing someone to remind you, hey, you have all this stuff, let's keep it simple. Why do you think coaches tend to forget that they need coaches?
Because it's like, so this is near and dear to my heart as well. And I have a colleague, and another quick story, a colleague of mine who I absolutely love and adore. And she is probably what I would say one of the world-class coaches, and she coaches coaches. Mm-hmm. And we had this conversation where I said to her, I come to you and I need help on something, but you don't come to me. Why? What's up with that? And it stopped her dead in her tracks. And I think coaches think that they have to have, and it might be part of the savior complex, they have to be the be end and end all. But I think the really good coaches are those who are curious and growing and learning with their clients and make it okay to be vulnerable, versus feeling like they have to have their bleep together, you know? And it wasn't until I said this to my colleague that she all of a sudden realized, like, how well do we all get coached? Mm-hmm. How well are we receptive to coaching and really take and integrate it? And I think that was the turning point that she helped me see. I have an ability to learn even more and watch and make myself vulnerable to those who are better and further along in their journey, always. Because it's the whole saying, like, the more you know, really, the more you think you know, actually, the less you realize you know.
Yeah. What, I think it's big for coaches to realize that you've stepped in, you've been extremely coachable in our program. What do you think has been one of the biggest benefits of having?
And I'm not being.
No, come on, seriously.
One of the biggest benefits is
having a team of coaches, really.
Well, you have a framework, and this is where the easiest part, and I do what you all have done for me, I do for my clients, is I have a system for them. a template of which I give them the start. I always talk about the difference between authoring something and editing. And so I'm going to talk about how it is for you all, what you've done for me through what I do for my clients. I don't have them author things. They don't need to. They can come to me and I give it to them to edit, to make it their own, because what I'm giving them is a template for them to dig their hands into it and make it so that they are discerning and not copying what they're just given, so that there's an authentic blueprint for them, a fingerprint that's all over it, that's theirs. And I realized with the work that you all have been doing is you have been giving me the template to figure out, how do I scale and have the impact I really want to have, given our world needs great leaders and needs to be giving them foundational tools that will help set them up for success and help them help others set up for success. So the process and the work that you've given me has enabled me not to start from scratch.
Yeah.
You have figured it out on so many levels. And now I have to take it and make it my own.
Very similar. It's very similar to you coming back to speaking to a room full of people and you having those foundations and asking what they want to layer on top of it. But then you still have to run and do it. I think it's awesome that we can give you these foundations and you can edit, but then you still have to do it. So now the last part here is, I'm curious, you're building this.
Yeah.
Who is it that tends to come to you for help? Because yes, you work with the big names, the Danones, the TJXs, but who is it that comes to you for help?
So I find that there's three groups. One is that they're leaders themselves. And I just had it yesterday. I was doing some work for executive coaching client and I was interviewing someone. And then this woman stopped. She goes, "Would you be willing to coach me?" And that happens because I'm a very direct, I'm not for everybody. Right. I'm very direct and will just cut to the chase and want to give people everything I can possibly give in the shortest amount of time without overwhelming them. Quite honestly, I really try and do that. The second group of people are leaders of teams. And I just had a call from a leader at Danone who found out about me because, and all of our work comes from referrals at this point. And we're scaling that now. Now we're getting a lot more, magazine articles or periodicals or TikTok, interest coming in. But leaders of teams come because they're trying to do big stuff. And then the third group of people are CHROs, Chief Human Resource Officers, or heads of talent, who are trying to do things in different ways to help their people. And by doing this, I have a hybrid approach that no one else is doing in our industry. And they're pretty excited. And so that's building for our, what I want to call our emerging leader accelerator. That process is helping leaders who have 10 to 15 years of experience. They have a team or managing multiple teams, and someone sees something in them and knows that if we give them the structure, this person is a multiplier and huge payoff.
So on the one side, CHROs, Chief People Officer, as I would say for myself, these are people that are purchasing it for their leaders in their team. They're purchasing it for someone else. And then you have team leaders and like aspiring leaders or new leaders coming up that are purchasing it for themselves.
Exactly.
Love it. And then what's the best way to find you? You say TikTok, you say LinkedIn. Is it all of them?
All of the above, but easy peasy is laurastone.com. For the website. And then TikTok is where I post everything, and it goes out to all the other platforms. But TikTok, I am finding, is amazing. And it's Laura Stone, it's hashtag or @ Laura Stone Leadership. Okay. And LinkedIn, you can find me. I'm in there too. So whatever's your quotient.
We'll put the link in the description. We'll put the full link tree in the description of places, because everyone, I'm sure, has their own way of bringing in this content. One, and then also new book coming out. It's like when this airs, it will be out. Could we will there be a link that we can throw in the description as well?
Yes, and I'd be so grateful, because we're going for being an Amazon bestseller. And the idea here is two things that people can do. Either I wanted to give a reasonably priced option for $2.99. They can just get the digital version. I personally, it just won't come across as well. I'm a tactile person. I personally love the book, but I would rather you have something than nothing and make it easy for you to do that.
Love that. And for anyone out there, it's my background as well. Make sure you purchase it. And then once you purchase it, leave a review. Don't leave a review first. Go purchase it, read it, then leave an honest review. Love it. Very excited. Okay, so we're winding down. We're getting into the uncomfort zone. People know how to reach you while you're down there in the description. Make sure you like and follow. Subscribe. I'm so used to my own self on TikTok where I say like and follow. Like and subscribe. And comment what you like about this. What questions do you have for Laura? I'm sure she'll go back, look at them, and she can answer. She can direct you in the right way for where to go next for next steps.
Yes.
The whole thing is you're doing this, Laura. You have been getting outside your comfort zone from like the beginning of this journey that I heard. Asking questions to leaders, right? Actually paying to do this, paying for coffee so you could learn all these things from people. Then you're putting yourself out there working with a bunch of these science nerds, and you get curious, and then you're growing, and it's Fidelity, right? All of this is you're constantly choosing to get outside your comfort zone. My question is why? Because there's a lot of people out there that don't, or do it less than they would like to. Why for you is it so important to get outside your comfort zone and continue to learn about leadership?
I think this is where our lives, like this is the pulse of humanity, quite frankly, is growing, learning, and pushing ourselves to see what's possible. And this is the place where, I get bored. For me, it's kind of like I can't stay in the same place and do the same thing over and over again. That to me is the definition of insanity with regard to a particular job. And now I have to say this because of my father. My father, bless his soul, he passed away over a dozen years ago. He worked for our government for almost 40 years and had almost the same job. And in a way, and this is going to sound negative, but it's positive. I realized I never wanted to be like him because I could see his potential and the things that he wanted to do, but he felt that he could never do it because he was the breadwinner. And and at that time, that's what men were supposed to do, was provide, just suck it up and go. And what he gave me was the gift of realizing there's more to life. Yeah. And live it. And that's why we're here, is to live and go big and bold and have some fun and be scared and know that we're still going to be okay.
I think it's beautiful that you bring that up and what your dad taught you, like you say, through the inverse. I think a lot of times I have to remind myself as a new parent, it's like my kid is going to learn a lot of lessons through me, through the inverse of what I do and don't do, right?
Yes.
I think that's part of the guardian journey. Now, on the other side of this, though, there are people that don't get outside their comfort zones, right? Like, and I always say, let's take the ego hat off. Like I don't want to do it in a judging way, but in your own opinion, why do you feel there are a good amount of people out there that don't get outside their comfort zone?
4-letter word, fear. And it keeps them paralyzed. And they think that certain things are going to happen or not happen if they take a risk. And what they don't realize is life is all about being on the edge. And if they're so fearful, to question it and really look at it. Katie Byron has a great body of work and research called The Work, and it's 4 questions. And the 4 questions, the first 2 are, is your fear, concern, issue true? Second question, is your fear, concern really true? Like, do you know definitively? Yeah. And it's always in that moment where if you first say, yes, it's true. And then all of a sudden there's a notch, a little opening that goes, you know what? Maybe it's not true.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't die. Maybe I won't make less money. Maybe, whatever it might be. And it's that glimmer. And that's the place where I think we can open up our hearts to seeing possibility, to truly love our lives rather than being on this earth just to endure it.
And it kind of answers that last question, is like, what would you tell someone that's on the edge of getting outside their comfort zone? I really like what you say of fear, though. Like, those 2 questions are, is your fear real? And then the follow-up question is pretty much, are you sure? Like, is there anything you'd add on top of it? Or do you think that lands the plane?
I think it's about trusting ourselves to know that we're put on this earth for something far greater than we ever imagined, and to see what's possible and go play in that playground of possibility, even if it's just little bits, like I did when I was volunteering while I had my main gig. Try things out in a safe way just to test it and see where more joy can come from. You never know. But you will know little bit by little bit, and that will give you more confidence and clarity, and doors will open, opportunities will show themselves. But just try just a little bit, just 1%, 2%. Never know.
1 second.
Yeah.
I'm done with my coffee now for this morning meet. I like to say too, like, make fear. That was an incredible answer. Now you're going to hear an answer from someone who loves imagination and is a nerd. I would make fear the best antagonist in the world and then go best it. Because what story doesn't end with the protagonist besting the antagonist? Have fun. Figure out what your journey is to best fear. This was an incredible early morning podcast. Thank you very much. Laura, thank you so much for joining us. A couple of things that I took for people that have made it this far. Being a leading voice for this lady is being a conduit of important information, right? Taking the focus off of yourself, and you're just the conduit in which this message needs to get out into the world. And that is kind of how we would describe leadership. Like, your job is to be curious and to be in the background, right? To ask the right questions, to pull from people. And it's simpler than you think. The main things that I talked about here with your book getting ready to come out is keep learning, keep that growth path simple, and keep it fun. Read pictures rather than words and words and words and words, so you have clear action. Have the right templates or foundations, and let people put their own icing on the cake. And then see what's possible in growth. Like, take that step into fear, even if it's little by little, and you don't know what's going to be on the other side. It was an incredible show. It was an incredible podcast. If you've been watching this or listening to it and you like it, so we can continue to spread our message, make sure you like and subscribe. Share this with someone that you know. Ask questions in the comments, and we'll be seeing you in the coming weeks with our next episode of A Matter of Speaking, a podcast for leading voices. Laura Stone, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Dylan. It's really a pleasure and honor. So excited.
I had a bunch of fun. And for everybody else, we will be seeing you soon.
See you soon.